Hi, this is Hesper Hyman, and this is my EDL853 case study, Get This Kid Out of My Room. First is a summary of what the case study is about. The case study is about Carl, who is a third grade special needs student. He does have an IEP and a behavior plan because of a behavior disorder that he has. He is in Miss Taylor's class, and Miss Taylor has become increasingly frustrated with his behavior because it seems that his behavior has moved from being self-abusive to becoming more verbally and physically abusive towards her, throwing rocks, throwing pencils, things like that. With Miss Taylor's frustration, she goes to Miss Green, who is a first-year special education teacher in the school, and basically has the demand, get him out of my room. Miss Green wants to do what's best for Carl, and so she tries to put together a modified IEP plan. And since they've already had his first IEP, they schedule a revised IEP meeting. His parents come, and during the course of that conversation, it becomes very clear that there is some other issues that's possibly going on at home. First of all, of course, the parents have divorced. It seems that Miss Hughes, Carl's mother, is working long hours, and so therefore she might not be able to provide. Miss Hughes also makes the comment about, should I give him some of his brother's medication? The new intervention plan then is agreed upon. Basically, the parents just want to sign it and get out of there. Miss Taylor does not seem to be very happy. Of course, Carl's still going to be in her classroom. And then Miss Green feels kind of defeated as well, in that she feels that they're not doing their very best for Carl. And then what can that look like, and what does it mean? So if I wanted to identify what the problem is, first of all, the problem is Carl. He's this small third grader that has become more aggressive. His parents recently divorced, and because of that, I think his behavior is escalating in the classroom, and it's him just kind of letting off frustration. Miss Taylor is becoming frustrated, of course, because she can't teach. She feels like she's constantly trying to keep up with Carl's behavior, and is always having to be messing with him instead of being able to deal with the rest of her classroom. And so she goes to Miss Green in the special ed department and just basically says, fix it. I want him out. So what are some things that I do know? I do know that Carl is a third grade student that does have an active IEP with a behavior plan for his behavior disorder. And also that he is functioning on the correct intellectual level for his grade and his age. And it seems that his behavior has changed dramatically since his parents' divorce, and has just been escalating since then. The school is a very small school that does not currently have an administrator on staff all the time. They do have a teacher that works in that role when the superintendent can't be there, and the superintendent is only there once a week. Miss Green is a first-year teacher in the special ed department, and Miss Taylor is a veteran teacher of about 10 years. There are two older siblings to Carl that both do have emotional disorders as well. So it'd be interesting to know what those are. The children do live primarily with the mother, and it seems that the mother is working long hours trying to provide their necessary needs. Susan then has developed a revised IEP behavior plan, gotten approval from the superintendent when he was there on his day, and then has set up the IEP meeting with Carl's parents and Miss Taylor. Some things that I would like to know. I'd like to talk to the parents and find out what behaviors he is portraying outside of the school. What are some things that they are noticing? And then I would like to compare if those behaviors are consistent with the aggressive behavior that we're seeing in the classroom. Also, is this aggression only towards women, or is it to any adult figure that he comes in contact with? Is it only adults, or is it students as well, and he's just a very angry, unhappy boy all the way around? I would also be interested in how much contact Carl does have with his father. Did he have a lot of contact with his father prior to the divorce and now has very little to none? What is that home life situation looking like? Is Carl currently taking any medications, or was he taking any medications and recently stopped? If there's a financial situation that has stopped mom from being able to afford the medications, is that something that's happening? And then it would be interesting to speak with everybody involved to see if we could figure out what Carl's triggers were. Is it just that he's hungry at home, that he doesn't have enough attention at home? Is it that he is tired? Is he just stressed because the divorce? Does he blame himself? Are there any of those? Do loud voices set him off? The more aggressive he becomes, does the adults in his life start to become even more aggressive and it just kind of escalates? And, does he become aggressive with other students? That would be interesting too. I would really like to know, has Ms. Taylor been implementing the current IEP? And has she been doing it successfully? Has she been implementing it as the IEP requires her? And I'd like to know if she had documentation of that. And then, of course, we would need to know what the school's behavior policy is. Has Ms. Taylor been following that? And, are there some parts of it that we need to implement into the new IEP? The steps and plans of actions that I believe we need to take first is there needs to be some observation and continual documentation of Carl and his behavior. While that's going on, of course, the current IEP and behavior plan needs to stay in place with the school policy. Contact the parents, staff, administration, everybody that needs to be in on the new IEP meeting for making the revisions, as well as any modifications that we need to make. We need to make sure that the parents do receive all of their procedural and parent rights. The revised IEP and behavior plan needs to clearly define Carl's behavior. What is the behavior that we want to see in him? Was the previous IEP really vague in his requirements? As Carl has gotten older, he might need more clearly defined limits. With that, with the decision being made to remove him from the classroom when his behavior escalates, there's some things that need to be in place. Number one, who's going to remove him from the classroom? Who is it that Ms. Taylor needs to contact? Where is he going to go? For how long is he going to be there? And then there needs to be a clearly defined reentry process. Carl has been guaranteed the least restrictive environment, and based on his intellectual functioning, that environment is the general education classroom, and so he needs to be able to return back to that setting and being with his peers. There also needs to be a setup of communication with home. Things have been going on at the home that more than likely are carrying forward into the classroom, and so that information needs to be shared. If there's negative things that are happening at home, that information needs to come from the parents to the school. And then the parents need to be notified if there is, behavior that's happening at school, whether it's good and it's bad. They need to hear about both. I think that you need to speak up with the family concerning some possible services that could be provided for them, either through the special education co-op or through DCF. It sounds like that mom is really struggling and not able to provide everything that she needs to for the kids. So it could be an instance where DCF or the special ed co-op could put her in contact with people to help, maybe with financial assistance, to maybe help with food, and maybe counseling services and things like that. Steps that I think need to be taken after the meeting. I believe that Ms. Green needs to contact the DCF. There were concerns that were raised in the meeting that there could be possible neglect. I don't think Ms. Hughes is intentionally neglecting her children, but if she's working 50 hours a week, who's home with the kids? Are they getting enough to eat? Are they going to bed? Do they have running water? Do they have heat? All of those things then could have a very negative impact on his performance and his aggression that we're seeing at school. And then the part that she brought up about medicating him, if that's something that she's discussing, is this something that she has possibly done in the past? We need to provide additional training for staff that's going to have contact with Carl. Once we've identified, Carl has switched from being self-abusive to being very aggressive. So there are some things that the staff that's going to have contact with him, I believe, need to know about. One is, what are those warning signs of him becoming agitated? And how can we train them to de-escalate that situation? And then if he does have to be removed from the situation, they need to be trained on who to contact, what needs to happen um, for him to be safely removed from the classroom. I think you definitely need to go over the district policies about putting hands on students. Sometimes in anger and frustration, things can get out of hand. And so you want to definitely make sure that you go over all of those policies so that they're very clear and outlined. So how did I resolve the issues based on the success for all students? First of all, Carl, he has the right to an education based on the least restrictive environment. And based on what the case study said about his intellectual functions, I believe that is the general education classroom, and he needs to be educated with his peers. The IEP BP needs to definitely address anytime his behavior becomes such that he does need to be removed from the classroom. But it needs to clearly define when that's going to happen, where he's going to go, for how long he's going to have to stay there. And then, as I've said before, how is he going to re-enter the classroom? Because he has the right to that least restrictive environment, which is going to be him in the classroom, not sitting down in the special ed department working in workbooks. It becomes very important to document the behavior in any disciplines, whether that is to see how the behavior is escalating or de-escalating, as our hope would be, or are we gathering documentation because there's going to need to be a different placement option for Carl? There does need to be, of course, referral to DCF in the special ed co-op possibly, because they could provide psychologists or counseling services for Carl. Maybe Carl just needs somebody to talk to about things that he can't control, such as his parents divorcing. And then there could be joint counseling that is offered. Contact for financial support. Mom, it sounds like, is really struggling, and it doesn't sound like the dad is really in the picture helping out too much. And so she's becoming overwhelmed with trying to take care of everything herself. So if there is some way to put them in contact with some type of financial support. And then I do know that some special ed co-ops will have doctors that their special needs students can see, and those funds a lot of times are provided for that. There does need to be observation and continual monitoring of Carl in the classroom, and that's not only for Carl, but also to support Ms. Taylor. Ms. Taylor has become extremely frustrated, and at the end of that case, she was not happy that he was going to be staying in the classroom, and so I think knowing that she has the support of the special ed department is going to be a huge thing.